Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Death By, where contestants will earn reps for their arguments for a chance to stand on top of the podium pedestal. I am your host, Lauren Kalil. Whoever I decide has the best argument through the final round will earn 30 seconds to talk about a topic of their choosing. We have a stacked crew fresh off of Madison from the CrossFit Games today. On the show, we have Dex Hopkins, CrossFit Games athlete, relaxing with the Nikes behind him. We also have the head coach of Underdogs Athletics, Justin Kotler. And we have 8-time CrossFit Games athlete and affiliate owner of NC Fit, Jason Khalipa. The crown is open. Let's play Death By. Topic number one, the CrossFit Games. It just wrapped up as individual elite athletes took on 12 total tests. Now, of those tests, 3 included single modality movements. We had the ride, the CrossFit or the cross country 5K, and the Olympic total. So the question is, should single modality movements be tested at the CrossFit Games? And if so, should there be a certain amount of tests? And if not, why? Jason Khalipa, we will start with you.
Okay, let's roll. Yes, I think single modality should be tested. I actually think that this year's CrossFit Games were super well programmed, super balanced. Now that they're, as exciting as they can be, right? Like they're great. I think that yes, single modality should definitely be something that's a part of it. And the reason why is that because that's a core component of what CrossFit is at its entirely. You have couplets, triplets, and single modality days, and it should be represented in the CrossFit Games as well.
Ooh, okay. Short, sweet, to the point.
I didn't last time you got mad at me for going too long. So I was trying to be more concise. I have my ESPN voice on right now. I'm trying,
I know. Cut right to the chase. I like it. The 3-2 punch. You got 2 points for your answer. We will turn it over now to Kotler. What are your thoughts on this one?
I agree. And I know that's no fun when you agree, but yeah, I agree with Jason. I mean, you look at the tests, there were 12 tests. I like to call the entire games the test. So I look at them as events. There were 3 events. So you got a quarter of the events that were single modality movements. And I think that the games is the perfect place to test single modality movements. Where I have a problem with single modality movements it is something like semifinals, where we're talking about 6 events, and I just think it biases the scores too much one way. But the CrossFit Games is the perfect place to test single modality movements, and I think at the end of the day, we've seen that throughout the history of the games, and I think it's something that will continue, and I have absolutely no issues with it.
Justin Kotler will get 3 points for that round. Dex, what are your thoughts on this? Sorry, Khalipa.
I finally get to disagree. I don't disagree,
Ooh.
but I think so. Athletically, coach-wise, whatever hat you want to put on it, I love CrossFit, the mixed modal, all the things. Jason's 100% right. It is part of the methodology to have a single modality day. I think the joke has always been in the affiliate, if you want a day off, program a 5K run or something like that, right? And I agree with the point Justin makes about earning that single modality test at the games, because the field is so small and the tests are so few at semifinals that it doesn't make a lot of sense. You kind of feed the specialist. But my favorite years have been something where CrossFit to me is being able to express those high-end single modality things under a different stimulus. So if we're doing a 1 rep max, but say there's a buy-in on a machine, so I need to do that at a high heart rate. I need to 333 the year we see Rich walk, we see Jason row a 2K on fire to start that event. There's CrossFit things sprinkled in there, right? Like I got to get to an uncomfortable kind of pain cave thing we're known for, the uncomfortable part. And then I have to mitigate that with the capacity I've earned across this kind of single modality test. If we want to count 333 as that, I don't mind them. But I think especially getting into strength portions and things like that, I feel like besides last year, I thought the sandbag was awesome. I think this year the total was cool having both. I'd love to see us go into where it's a capacity thing, seeing people hit 90+% of their very heavy 1 rep maxes now after some kind of high level high aerobic buy-in to where they got to do it at, 80, 90% heart rate. And that's CrossFit to me. So yeah, I like it. But I think we're a little past like one thing outside of like the long aerobic test. I think that's always necessary, especially like Justin said at the games.
Okay, Dex, you got yourself 4 points for that response. Jason Khalipa's going to leave.
So it sounds like you're going for the longer answer.
Just talk longer, Jason, and you're going to get more points.
I talk fast too. Look, I got
it.
I got the shot clock. I was trying really hard.
It got a little long, but I like some of the points that you brought up there. Quick follow-up question, because I've seen a lot of this on the internet of people saying that there weren't enough strength tests. And I don't know if people are just like so in the mindset that there wasn't enough barbell or delusional. Okay, well,
Agreed.
Jason, we're going to let you. Okay, let's hear it. What do you guys think about that?
Well, you got some people who are hating on the cuts coming in. I saw someone's like, oh, so you cut and you didn't even incorporate a barbell. It's like you're missing the point here. You could test strength in so many different ways than just a barbell. Frankly, that's a great way to test strength, is see what type of utility have you developed in the gym that translates over into heavier objects. And when you look at a lot of the loading that was incorporated, not just the clean and jerk and different stuff, but I mean, the sled pushes they're doing, the sandbags they're carrying. I mean, these things were super heavy. So to say you're not incorporating strength, I think is misguided. And if you look at the people who are performing, there were people who were strong. Strong people performed well. So it tells me that strength was probably tested.
Okay. Any other thoughts around that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's no doubt when you look at, I mean, I've seen people talking about that and they're not really taking into account the movements. I mean, what was more difficult and showed more strength capacity than the pig? I mean, at the end of that workout, after everything that anybody had to do, I mean, all you had to do was watch Laura massacre the pig, and compared to the rest of the field, the sandbag sprint with the ski. I mean, that was incredibly difficult and showed an unbelievable capacity for strength endurance. I mean, I think people are a little bit misguided. I think just people like barbells, so they wanted to see them. But at the end of the day, the games gets you out of your comfort zone, man. That's the whole idea behind it. You're trying to test everything, and a lot of it is functionality. A lot of it is what we do. Functional movements talk about what CrossFit is, and the games test that to its extreme. And we saw that this year with a lot of the implements. I thought it was well done.
I thought it was great. Like the things that we are used to, and they're super accessible to people. I think that's why they focus so hard on just the barbell. Nobody has you think back to like when it was like dirty floor, homemade stuff in the affiliates, and it was like your belly's dirty and because you were flipping a tire and doing crazy stuff. The closest thing to that now is odd objects at the games. The pig, think back to all the weird stuff Rogues made, the slug, I can't remember the name of it, the big wheel. I like having to, again, I hate beating this dead horse, but like the methodology of like large loads, long distances, that is your real strength and the functionality of it, pig, weird stuff. And they had to earn that through the cuts and all that stuff, still express it with massive doses of high volume gymnastics, which is a heavy load at baseline, coming back to pigs and stuff like that. You earn the barbell and things like that. And that's been true through every level through the entire history of like the open and regionals and all that.
Okay, so unanimous decision that people that said there wasn't enough strength tested at the games, y'all say too bad.
You're silly. You're silly.
The end of round one, we have Dex Hopkins with 4 points, Justin Kotler with 3, and Jason Khalipa bringing up the rear with 2 points. We'll see if he can earn some back.
Jason, play him by the rules. Play him by the rules.
You play by the rules, you get left behind. I mean, here it is.
You still got those guns, though, Jason. You still got those guns, buddy.
Hey, that's why
I can't take those away from you.
I wore a tank top. It's Tuesday. Is it
It is, buddy.
It's Tuesday.
All right, heading into round number 2. One of the most incredible things that I think we all saw at the CrossFit Games was the grit and determination that we saw through Roman Khrennikov after suffering a foot injury. How he chipped away at the heavy rope double unders on one foot and ultimately was still able to stand on the podium was something that I think we're all going to remember. But going back to semifinals, we saw athletes like Alex Carone removed by CrossFit from competition due to an injury. So where do we draw the line? Should CrossFit ultimately let athletes decide whether they're medically removed from competition? Why or why not? Justin Kotler, I'm going to let you start this round.
Ooh.
Oh, I mean, listen, I'm old school, baby. Like at the end of the day, I know if I was competing, I mean, you'd have to cut my arm off to get me off the field of play. And truth of the matter is, I mean, at the end of the day, this CrossFit Games was so memorable because of what Roman overcame. I mean, I'd argue that what happened to him was almost more impactful to his career than winning the games. And if they had medically removed him from the competition, we wouldn't have gotten that. We wouldn't have gotten one of the best moments in the history of the games. What I do think, though, is I think we need some consistency. And I think it's something we need to talk about prior to the season. And I think it's something that we need to decide because it is challenging. And I do understand where if you set a precedent one way and then you change it for somebody else, there's going to be some blurred lines there. So I think we do have to figure that out. But I'll tell you the truth. To me, unless somebody is, unless there's a fear that they are going to destroy the rest of their careers or they just can't continue, I have a hard time pulling somebody out. These people are warriors, man. And what we're seeing is superhumans doing superhuman things. And that's part of this sport. And that's what I love about it.
Jason's going to lose it. This is near and dear to his heart. I can see it.
Oh, no, I'm not going to lose it. I'm not going to lose it. But it is very near and dear to my heart. But yeah.
I was there. Shit.
4 points for Kotler. All right. Jason's chomping at the bit. Here we go. Let's see you bring it in.
No. I agree with Justin. And the thing about it is that it's so I agree that, with Roman's injury, it was like one of the most, I agree. I think it's going to be better for his career than anything at this point, because he showed grit, he showed determination, he showed things that people want to get behind. But where the struggle becomes, and I agree completely, is like you have to create a baseline. And I don't know how other sports do this. I mean, we'd have to see what the rules are for other sports like football, et cetera. But you can get this slippery slope. On the one hand, if an athlete gets injured, they're not going to want to say anything to anybody because they don't want to maybe be pulled from the event. So that might not be good too, because they might need medical attention, but they intentionally avoid it so they don't cause a red flag. So that's a problem. On the other hand, if they're medically unable to compete, CrossFit might be, from a liability perspective and whatnot, needs to be aware of those things too. So I think just ahead of time, it's like, hey, these injuries would, justify not continuing on, whereas these ones wouldn't. I think that just creating that alone would be a step in the right direction, especially like any type of head injury. I think you got to probably, tone that back.
3 points for Jason. Dex, what are your thoughts on this one?
Oh man, let's put it into other sport terms like we like to do. So football, the only thing to have a protocol for, right, is head injuries, like Jason says. Yeah. Right. And you also can game that. So as a college football player, I knew in camp I was going to have to take a baseline test, sandbag it, look like an idiot, because at any point in the season, I might get my bell rung and have to retake that. And I just have to do a round or better than I did on my baseline. Cool. Like with this is where, and we've talked about this in a previous episode, where the minimum work requirement, you can enforce things like this without having to be the bad guy. And then it can trickle down. Hey, this minimum work requirement, if you got this kind of injury, you're not gonna be able to hit it, right? So if, a foot injury, it sucks. You're going to crunch your foot up into Rice Krispie treat pieces and all that stuff. But I mean, we're only talking about it because of the stuff that happened with Alex, right? Like them, and on top of the disrespect type stuff that happened. But I think at that point, if it is not like, like what happened to, and I was joking about Jason, but what happened in 2015 when Miranda blew her knee out on the clean and jerk, I mean, we had to run across a wet field to a wooden platform, freak accident. Right. And they were kicking everybody's ass, mine, Rich's, everybody's. And they pulled her and would not let them continue with 5 people. And they probably still could have, given the events we had left. And so I think, like we keep saying it, there does have to be a baseline and a procedure, and it has to be consistent. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it seems like Alexander Crone didn't put on the show they wanted. You didn't try hard enough. But Roman's fed into a really good narrative at a different level where there's more cameras and stuff like that. So it was okay. And that's not cool across any level. So the consistency is what has to happen.
It's a tough position to be in. Sorry to just jump in here, Lauren. It's just
that's okay. 3 points for Dex.
Well, like looking back on it, like it's a very difficult position for CrossFit to be in because, like looking back on our situation with Miranda, it's not a great look on ESPN for you to have an athlete who's sitting out or not there or injured, or like Roman, for example, he was just staying on the bike. But then how do you justify or how do you quantify what like your best effort is, or you have to continue to move, or a minimal work requirement requires that you show effort in this? It's very vague, but I understand what CrossFit's trying to do, which is not have one person just like sit out, because that's also not a good look either. But maybe that's just sport and it just is what it is. Maybe someone should just be sitting out, and that just, you know what I mean? Like they're in between a rock and a hard place because they want to quantify what this is, but then you might have people that can't perform that and they're just gonna be sitting there, and that sucks too.
It is a tough decision between like being professional and keeping these athletes safe to not have long-term injuries or something like a concussion, but also kind of as Kotler alluded to, we want to see these athletes play on their biggest stage, and it's a hard balancing act. I think it's a conversation that needs to continue with a lot of the experts, hopefully in the space, that they're thinking of the same things that
Well,
we
it's the
are.
nature of the beast too, like where there's 1 to 2 opportunities to make money throughout the year for these guys. So it's a much different conversation than NFL, baseball, and all that. So
All right, topic number 3, the CrossFit Games leaderboards. They looked maybe unlike many of us had expected, both on the men's and women's side with some of the athletes. So I'm curious what each of your biggest surprises on the leaderboards were at the CrossFit Games. Jason Khalipa, I am going to let you kick off this round of men and women. Who were your big surprises?
I mean, Jeffrey Adler, I was not expecting to win in such dominant, or in the way that he won. I wasn't expecting, obviously, Roman to break his foot. And if you had asked me like on, I think it was Friday or Friday, I was like, dude, something would have to happen Friday night. I was like, something has to happen to Roman for him not to win these games. Cause he was just dominant, you know, top 10, top 10, top 10, top 10. And so I was not expecting Roman to take third. I was not expecting Jeff to win the way he did. And I think the momentum really shifted after that. The Helena event, man, he crushed it. I mean, just killed it. So I would say that my most unpredicting was Jeffrey Adler winning. I wasn't expecting him to win the way he won. And then the other is I was shocked that Roman stayed on the podium. Shocked. I thought for sure Brent was going to take third and it was going to be a Canadian full sweep, but that didn't happen. Those were my moments for me.
Anyone on the women's leaderboard?
I thought Laura, obviously she killed it. It was cool to see Emma Lawson be consistent, you know, for as young as she is, to be able to come back with the type of pressure that someone takes when they're coming back, being on the podium before. For her to come back, be that young and that composed and perform that well all week, that was really cool to watch.
2 points for Kotler. Khalipa. Sorry, Khalipa.
Jeez. 2 points for me. I didn't even go yet.
Oh, man.
You're already stealing points. You know what? If Dex and Justin get no points this round, then maybe we'll have an additional round. I don't know. You could hope for that.
Got to.
Okay, Dex, you're up.
Man, in the name of like progression and surprises, very, very impressed by Adler's progression, going from really strong cat to guess you guys didn't think I could run, and seeing him interact with the media the way he did, and talking, you know, just hot shit in the microphone was great to be perfectly honest. And then personally, like, I mean, that was awesome. I think Roman no doubt runs away with it unless he has that injury for sure, but very cool to see progression in him. Very cool to see, you know, in our second year, to see Roman, a killer instinct, to be able to come out and put his hands around the neck of this thing. The big story to me too, that kind of broke my heart, was Justin, the way it kind of went out, to see him kind of fight all weekend. And then personally, my man Chandler Smith coming back with come on, dog. Asthma attack here to a top, you know, a top 5, like can't beat it. Like my cup was full, heart was super pumped for the cat, and his wife was there on the team. So personally, that was my favorite thing. And then I hope that it's super true that still that Ariel Lowen only does affiliate classes, and she goes and crushes CrossFit Games in every event. I mean, I'm sure that's not completely true now, but it's very cool to see that. And then seeing Laura finally break through, man. We used to be like Team Ramwad athletes together, and then seeing her finally like run through that wall, and it not matter that, you know, handstand push-ups were a thing, and event to event to event, keep the killer instinct through the whole weekend and battle it out with the young lady, Emma Lawson. So it was a really cool on both sides. I think we haven't had that in a long time, to where like the storylines, the threads are everywhere, and it's exciting to watch every step.
3 points for Dex. Okay, Justin Kotler, what were your biggest surprises?
Well, I think there's only one answer on the men's side. And I mean, I'm surprised these guys didn't. Well, Dex kind of brought it up, but the biggest surprise is Justin Medeiros. I mean, who
Oh.
the heck would have thought that that dude would finish outside the top 10? And, I think we're all kind of grasping for reasons like, did he have a concussion? Did he break a rib? Did he do this? Did he do that? And I mean, I don't know that we'll ever know the answer to that. I mean, I think we can all admit, though, that going into the games, there was not one person on this panel who would have picked him outside of the top 10, probably outside the top 5, and probably outside the top 3, if we're being honest. So that was, in my opinion, the biggest surprise of the games on the men's or women's side. And I expect Justin to come back with a vengeance. So I'm sure we will see that, this upcoming season, probably maybe as soon as Rogue. But that was definitely a huge surprise. And, obviously, listen, I'm a little bit biased, but I don't, other than myself, constantly touting her and basically telling everyone who would listen going into the games. Watching Alex do what she did, go from 24th to 5th to win most improved. She just turned 22 years old. We always talk about, some of these, the younger athletes like the Emma Lawsons, the Emma Careys, the Mals, et cetera. People, they generally don't put Alex on that list. Well, they're going to put her on that list now.
Come on now.
What, she is, in my opinion, the fastest rising star in this sport. She has the highest trajectory of anyone on the women's side. She has made the fastest progression of anyone that I have coached in 15 years of doing this. Wow. I will tell you right now, she is only getting better. And as scary as she went from 24th to 5th, she is going to be that scary these next 2 years because her progression is off the charts. There are things that she's going to continue to get better at. I don't say this often, and I've done this a very long time. She's one of maybe 2 or 3 athletes that I've coached over 15 years that I say can win the games. And I truly believe that. So I'm super stoked for her because she's such a great person. And I love when good things happen to good people. So on the women's side, I would say Alex, and on the men's side, I would say Justin.
And she can bench 300 pounds.
Just about.
Just about. Yeah.
Just about.
Everybody needs a hype man like Justin Kotler.
Hey, Justin, so you talk. Oh, sorry, Lauren. Go ahead and give the points out, and then I have a question.
Okay, Justin Kotler gets 4 points. You win.
Oh, damn it!
But Jason Khalipa can ask his question now before we advance him.
Justin Medeiros, right? So you have Justin Medeiros. You're saying, hey, we don't know if he got hurt on the bike ride or whatever it is, right? But what kind of breaks that down for me is that he did have some good events. Like if you just look at his performance throughout the week, it just overall was not top 3 material. Like he had some good finishes, shout out to him. He performed well in some events, but just a lot of events where he just did not perform well. And so it makes me wonder, for example, he came back after the bike and several other, situations. And he ended up, if I'm not mistaken, I think he won the handstand medley or did really well. Second.
Yep.
So if he was messed up, had a concussion, whatever, how do you come back and walk on your hands and win an event like that? So I guess the point I'm trying to make is I think there's easy to come to conclusions like that, but I think at the end of the day, he just didn't have a great CrossFit Games.
I agree with you, Jason. I also think there was a little bit of a precedent set at semifinals. He didn't have a great semifinals, right? I mean, he came in 5th, I think, in the Northwest. And I just think, I think it was one of those scenarios where we don't know all the ins and outs behind the scenes. And obviously we've seen Justin before, and he's been, the crazy thing about Justin is he hasn't been dominant, but he's probably the most consistent of anybody over the last few years, right? He top 10, top 10, top 10, top 10, top 5, top 10. And we just saw some performances that we weren't used to. And I don't know why, obviously. But I would assume that, they're going to go back to the lab and they're going to take a look at that. And I would expect him to come back with a vengeance this upcoming season. I'd be very surprised if he wasn't threatening, the podium at Rogue, if he competes there, or threatening the podium at Wodapalooza, if he competes there, or if he just comes back and trains and comes back for the games next year. I would expect him to be, again, back in the mix for somebody who's going to be in the top 5 for sure.
One way or another, it's certainly going to be a conversation that assuming many of us will be having with each other. Justin Kotler, you are our winner. 30 seconds or about 30 seconds, a topic of your choosing, and you may begin.
Topic of my choosing. I have one question.
Ooh.
Where the hell are the CrossFit Games going to be next year?
Oh,
That's my big question.
Yeah.
Okay. One, I mean, I just think we all want to know, but logistically, right? For athletes, for coaches, for spectators, etc. We all need to know where it is so we can start making plans now, because the city is as small as it is in Madison. We've got to find Airbnbs, we got to find hotels, we got to be able to travel, etc. So I am hoping that we are going to get an announcement soon, and we're going to find out where the games are, because at the end of the day, there's a lot that goes into planning. I know that that's the case for CrossFit, but you also have to take into consideration all the athletes, all the spectators, all the coaches, etc. So please announce where the CrossFit Games are soon.
I'm guessing Dallas.
What'd you hear, Justin? Any of you guys heard anything?
That's
what I heard apparently was complete bullshit, and I saw papers and city official shit. So
really,
Dex, you're not allowed to talk about anything on any podcast. After Birmingham,
we had the proof.
Don't get in trouble. Jason, I've heard Texas, but I mean, I can't. Can you imagine Texas in August?
I can imagine Birmingham.
I've heard two spots. This is like the word on the street is Texas or Colorado, and I think Colorado. I think Colorado could be excellent, actually. I think Texas is cool, just depending on the venue. Like if you're outside in summertime, and who's to say that it's going to stay at the same time of the year, right? Who knows?
Oh,
right.
Wow.
I was thinking that as well. I mean, Colorado is obviously beautiful. It'd be interesting, but I mean, everybody would have to move there.
Yeah. Well, dude, you remember Jason,
get there 3 months before the games, right? I mean,
yeah.
The first year they had super regionals, and they had the South Central and maybe Southwest. I don't think that was you guys, Jason, but they had it in Utah. And I remember just bloody nose Central from everybody from Mississippi, Louisiana. And that was my whole thing with we spoke about Birmingham more and city official, whatever. It is different here. And yeah, Texas is it's 105 in Texas right now, I guarantee. And it is not dry California.
60% humidity, etc.
60. That's a light day.
But it would be brutal. I mean, if it was outside, I don't even know how they would do it. It would just
bring it back to Cali.
Hey, I 100% look. I miss the Coliseum's cool, but it ain't the tennis stadium, baby. I'm be perfectly honest with you.
I loved Carson. I agree.
Yeah.
I would love for it to go back to Cali.
I will take the 100% danger you're in being in Compton when you leave the grounds versus the cheese curds and nice restaurants in Madison, for sure.
Well, let's hope that we find out soon so we can book our Airbnbs and flights and all of the accommodations to go to, I can't believe we're already saying it, the 2024 CrossFit Games.
Crazy.
Oh, Keeper's going to have an anxiety attack, Justin.
Oh, I know. Trust me. Yeah, exactly.
Well, congratulations to Justin Kotler. Thank you to everybody else, Dex Hopkins, Jason Kalipa. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to watch us here on Death by from Talking Elite Fitness. We are getting all of our post CrossFit Games content out to you, both on podcast, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.